Well, I'm James Blackburn, for those of you who don't know me, and I ring in Beverley in East Yorkshire. Pip asked me to talk about recruitment and training from an involvement that I've had with a number of towers in our area. What I would like to say to start off with is I'm not an expert in recruitment or training. I'm still learning, very much so, but what I will say is it's been a privilege and a pleasure to be involved with some of these towers that I'm going to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually review 4 of our towers in the area with regards to recruitment and learning. We're going to look at how they started off, where they started from, how the training was coordinated, and what is happening now, and some of the issues around the way that we've done it, some of the issues around the way that the recruitment took place. So just to give you a bit of a background, I'm going to look at the towers. The first tower here, Ring of 5 Bells, very small village with approximately 100 people population, and there wasn't a band there for over 20 years, so no local ring. That's a tower called Rise. The second tower I'm going to look at, large village with a population of about 10,000 people, Ring of 6 Bells, and the local band dwindled over a few years, where a lot of local residents moved away from the area and just leaving 1 or 2 local ringers. The third tower is a small village, population of around 1,200, Ring of 8 Bells, and they've always had a local band, but they boosted their numbers recently. I'll explain the process. And the last one is a very small Ring of Bell, very small village with approximately 200 people, Ring of 6, and there's once again no local band for over 20 years. Okay, so Tower 1, this is the Ring of 5. It all started off really with the supply of ropes. You might think, well, what's he talking about, supply of ropes? Well, what basically happened was we have a rope bank in our local society, and we knew that the ropes in Rise were in a bit of a bad condition, so one of our local ringers went along and changed the ropes there. It got brought up at the PCC meeting, and 2 members of the PCC asked the question, we didn't even know we had any bells at our tower. Okay, so 2 people on that PCC, bearing in mind new members, there wasn't an awful lot of ringing at this tower, and suddenly they said, if we've got bells, we want to learn to ring them. And that was the impetus that started all of that off. So we've got a Ring of 5 Bells and we've got 2 keen individuals. They then went round and they put information in their local parish newsletter and did a recruitment. And that's where it all started off, and we trained 7 people. What basically happened there was the vicar at the tower had connections with a local ringer. That local ringer was keen to teach some of those ringers, and also we gave them support as a local society. The next tower, this tower was the tower that started off at Ring of 6, a tower called Ellerton, and various people moved away from the tower just due to work commitments, and they moved out of the area. So what actually happened was there was a conversation at PCC meeting once again, and it was about the struggle that this tower had to get ringers for weddings, because they didn't have a local band and they were approaching ringers from other towers to man the wedding. And one person on this tower came and approached us after we were ringing a quarter peal band and said, I'm on the PCC, I'd really like to learn how to ring our bells, and would it be possible to teach me and some other people that I think would be interested? So he did a recruitment of him and some friends. They came along, they then learnt to ring. Their sons came along and learnt to ring. Their sons went back to school and told their friends came along and learnt to ring, and consequently the 7 or 8 ringers at that tower now, and they have their own band for some service. Tower 3. Now this already had a band. The band had been there a long time, occasional new members coming along, and they started a restoration appeal for their Ring of 5 Bells. They augmented to a Ring of 6 and subsequently have augmented to a Ring of 8. One of the ringers is also a member of the local school governance body, and she wanted to get some of the local primary school involved with ringing. So she went and spoke to the school. They got involved with the project. They came down to Taylor's when we had the bells cast to see the casting of the 2 new bells. And some of the school ringers that are involved have got friends involved, and there are now 6 individuals from that school. Some of them have gone to the next school, secondary school, but still ringing. They ring for their school services when the services are held at the church, and they rang when we went down to the casting of the bells. But it was a very public appeal in the village. The whole village got behind the project. The church was absolutely packed at the dedication service for the 6th, and also at the dedication for the 8th. And the school came down when we were lifting the bells into the tower. The whole of the school came down one morning to see the first bell being lifted up into the tower. It was very much a community project. Tower 4. I'll tell you what Tower 4 was where I was mainly involved with. This is a tower called Numburn. A member of the PCC had heard the bells one day once ringing. She was aware that there used to be a band there many years ago. And so she came along and she spoke to the ringers, and they put her in touch with the local society. And our president at the time asked me to go down and set up a demonstration, arrange for some ringers to come along. There were 6 of us that turned up on the day. This lady had been out and leafleted the whole village. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see how many people we expect. And as I arrived, one of the other ringers was stood outside the church. And he said, and he had this look of horror on his face. What am I walking into here? And he said, I said, has no one turned up? And he said, no, the opposite. So out of a population of 200, there was 32 people in the church wanting to know about ringing. So I'm walking into the church to give this demonstration. I'm thinking, oh. Anyway, from the development of this, we actually got 18 people that signed up to say they wanted to learn to ring. That process then went on for a number of months. We thought, well, first of all, we reviewed the problem. How do you teach 18 people with no local ringers there? And we looked at this and we said, well, the only way that we can do it, we don't want to teach 1 or 2 at a time. We're going to have to teach everybody en masse. What we actually did was we split the practice night. We set up a regular practice night. We split the practice night into 2 2-hour sessions. We invited half the band to come to the first 2-hour session and the other half of the band to come to the second 2-hour session. And so we had 8 or 9 people that came along. Now, I know that time on the end of a rope wasn't a huge amount of time. There were 2 or 3 of us teaching. But we wanted to keep that community spirit together and the team spirit. And when anybody did something for the first time, somebody ran the first backstroke by themselves, there was a huge round of applause, and everybody supported absolutely everybody in that tower. It was a huge community thing. If we'd have taught 1 or 2 people at once, and then moved on to the next people, we'd have lost some people on the way. We managed to maintain the momentum with the majority of that project. There's been a couple of people that have said to us after a couple of years, we realise ringing's not for us or whatever, but they've given it a good go. And subsequently there has been other ringers that have come to join us. So what are the bands doing now? Well, the first tower, the Ring of 5, they've just had another recruitment. One of their local ringers who was taught in the last 2 years rang her first appeal last week. They've just done another recruitment, as I say, put another advert out in the parish magazine, spoken to some of the local residents, and they've got another 2 or 3 people learning to ring, and they had their first lesson a week or so ago. They are significantly supported by another tower very close by, and that tower only used to practice once every other week, just due to other commitments that were on from the band members. They now alternate practices with this tower. So this tower practices once every other week, but as a group they come together, they support each other, and there's a great community spirit going on. The second tower, which is the Ring of 6 at Ellerton, they now ring every week for practice. This is the one with 4 or 5 youngsters from a local secondary school. They're encouraging their friends to come along and ring, and there's a great spirit in that band. There's a lot of involvement with the younger ringers. They've been ringing their first quarter peals, and one of their local ringers rang their first peal about a year ago. The third band, which is the band at Roots, which augmented from a 5 to the ring of 8. They are going from strength to strength really. They have the existing band that was already there, plus they have a lot of new younger ringers under the age of 14 or 15. They have about 6 ringers now, that's age group. As a consequence of that, 2 of the ringers, which are 2 brothers, have brought their mother along, who's learnt to ring as well. And so the band is growing. And what I will say is, and the tower captain's asked me to mention this, is that recently they had a local authority inspection of the school. And the school, it was actually mentioned in the report that they thought it was a great thing that the school had been involved with bell ringing. And it was, as I say, specifically mentioned that it was a great activity and the school was getting involved with community activities. And the 4th tower, which was the ring of 6 with 30 people at the demonstration. It's just an absolute pleasure to go to any of their practices. It's taken a long time to develop that band from a point of view that you've got 18 people all learning to ring rounds and call changes, and then going on to playing hunts, getting into playing ball. We've had a tremendous amount of help from local ringers from other towers surrounding that, but it's just an absolute pleasure when you go there. They're all so supportive of each other. Everything that they achieve, there's emails flying around congratulating each other. Anybody goes to a new tower to ring, oh, can I come with you? It's just absolutely brilliant, and from a point of view of support and supporting the local society, that tower is a great benefit to the society. So the common themes then, well actually all of these towers are in villages. Their unique selling point is it's a community activity, and that's what they've sold it on. It's taken 1 or 2 key individuals to actually go out there and say, we've got this resource, why aren't we using it? I've actually got a copy of the flyer that was sent round by the last tower. I'll just read it out. This is the flyer that went out to every member of the parish. Many years ago we had a successful bell ringing band in Blackburn. I hope that we have enough interest in and around the village to start another one. I've organised for the local ringing master of the society to come along and six other ringers to give a demonstration on the specific date. Please come along and support this event. You may be interested in how the bells work rather than learning to ring. The ringers are very kind and helpful. If you like, there will be an opportunity to have a go. Hope to see you all there. So it's very informal. All her process behind that was trying to get somebody involved. And as I say, they've created such a huge community and team spirit within all of these bands. But there has been a huge amount of enthusiasm, and that's not just come from those ringers that have been taught to ring. It's also come from the ringers around the area who have got involved with actually teaching these individuals, supporting them beyond the teaching, and it's really good to see them at our monthly meetings, new ringers and other people taking responsibility for them as well. So I know it's short and sweet, but are there any questions?
Would you advise anybody else in going for that last approach in a new tower with no ringers whatsoever, or an unrung tower? It sounds like you've got to lose some elements of quality control if you've got that many.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've gone very public about the fact that we were going to ring the bells and having this demonstration, and the lady who was involved has gone around and spoken to a lot of the local residents. The location of the church is right at one end of the village, and it is in a very rural setting. But I completely agree with what you're saying, and a lot of the stuff that we started in early days was doing on site.
Is it ground floor?
Ground floor.
Is that's helpful when you've got 32 people coming to
Yeah, and it was unique in that setting, in the fact that a lot of things went for us when we actually set that up, and having those people to come down and do the demonstration, it's a lot more difficult if you're in a very small and restricted ringing chamber. We did also set visual aids up during the teaching process, where we put cameras onto the bells and had a big screen in the church so people could see what was going on. But yeah, The only reason that we wanted to do it as bigger groups, and we appreciated the fact that it would take a longer process, was we wanted to keep the group together and as a cohesive group, and that has worked. So no, I do take on board your comments. It was very difficult at the time because we were in a position where we said, well, how do we actually solve this problem? We've got all these people that want to ring, and we don't want to put anybody off, we don't want to discourage anybody, and there's a real opportunity here that this band could be set for a long time to come if we do this right. Unfortunately, we're in a position now where we're looking back and those bands are regularly ringing on a practice night, they're regularly ringing for the services. There's 2 services a month on a morning there that they ring for, and they haven't missed a service for 18 months to 2 years. And there's been lots of other things that have brought the ringing has enhanced by being in the church.
Did you use the ITTS to teach them?
No, in actual fact it was before, going back to Dunbarton was 4 years ago, so it was very much in its infancy. I hadn't been on the ITTS course at that point, and I think that, to be honest, with the approach that the ITTS takes, it would be potentially a lot more cohesive sometimes in the way that to teach a lot more people. So yeah.
How many teachers did you actually use? How many of you were going in?
The first tower, which was the Ring of 5, there was 2 or 3 people. There was 6 or 7 learners involved with that. The second tower, which was the Ring of 6, which already had an existing band. Sorry, no, it was the Ring of 6, where the band had dwindled away. There was 2 or 3 of us. That one was more of a progression because we started off with 2 people, another couple of people came along, and then a further couple of people. The tower, which was the augmentation from the 5 to 8, that really was done predominantly in-house with the existing ringers, but with support of the local society. And the final tower, there were 3 or 4 teachers, but we spelled it a bit as well, so it
So
wasn't.
you spent an awful lot of time personally with your group of friends
Yes.
going into these other towers.
Yeah, but I have
How
to.
many overlap? Did you have to go out sort of several times a week to do this?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago I was going out pretty much every night of the week. But looking back on it now, I wouldn't have not been involved with it. It's been a tremendous privilege to us to say be involved with it. And some of those, there's been other things going on at different towers as well. Obviously, I was quite heavily involved with the augmentation as well. But it has been a bit of a labour of love.
I mean, you obviously need fantastic individuals to drive sort of successes like this, but I was taken several times in your presentation, James. You said our society. So the question more for the room is, do people believe that actually they can get the support, the real resources that you need to help teach bands out of guilds?
Yeah, I was going to follow on with that. So we were going to say, well, what's the Beverley district sort of training? Has this sort of fallen on the lap to the B&D and they've sort of taken it on, or had it?
To be perfectly honest, yeah, the hard bit is the recruitment. The hard bit is actually getting that key individual in a tower or with a connection to that church to go out there and do the legwork and get the people in. We follow that up by giving them the support for doing that, and doing the teaching. And that's why I say I'm no expert in recruitment. We've taken that opportunity, and there would have been tremendous opportunities lost if we hadn't taken that. But yes, I completely agree with what you're saying. It's about that. There's nothing that's happened here that hasn't happened that couldn't happen anywhere else without having the right person and a bit of enthusiasm. And that's what it's all about. It's about engaging with that person that's going to go out there and talk to the local residents. Me going into that last village and saying, you can all come down and ring your bells, wouldn't have had the same impact as a local resident actually going around and talking to them and saying, we've got this opportunity here to use the bells that are in our village, that locals have rung in the past, and they capitalise on that.
Yeah, I think my own experience is actually not dissimilar to some of your towers. Just a few years earlier, we were augmented from 4 to 6, and we had no bells rung for 20 years before the augmentation. So somebody took that on board. I was one of the volunteers. 12 of us volunteered to ring and the local guild supported us and taught us reasonably well, not as well as I suspect they would have been nowadays, having joined the ITTS scheme and become a teacher myself. The problem we've got, and a lot of towers around, although there was the enthusiasm back then when there was the big project, the augmentation, or let's start ringing again, that's a really big hook to hang a campaign on to recruit people.
Yeah.
But our tower is dwindled down. We're down to 5 from my local village. I'm lucky that I get people from around. We can just, and I mean just, keep going.
Yeah.
But I haven't got that hook anymore.
Yeah.
And I suspect some of your towers are going to be in the same position because we lose people over time, you can't help it. How do you get new ones?
I completely agree with what you're saying. From a point of view of the society, we've taken that on board, and we actively put courses on for ringers to get involved with. Any opportunity where there is support required at that tower. We have a very much an open relationship with a lot of these towers, and I talk to them on a regular basis, and I'm not on my own with that. There is quite a big community spirit, and so I'll get a message to say, oh, we're a bit short of numbers this week, we'd like to ring on, we're only going to have 7 or 8 people, but we haven't got enough strength to ring, one of our ringers wants to ring Plainbow Major or whatever. Is there any chance that you can support it? And a lot of people have said to me, if there's any way you need me to go, just send me a message and I'll go along and help them. So we do have quite a strong community spirit of people that are willing to travel and support those people. I think it's important to engage with those members so that people don't become bored and stagnant with the progress that they're making and giving them the opportunities to enhance. But I think you're dead right in what you're saying. There is always going to be some people that are going to say, it's not for me, I'm not making enough progress, I'm not meeting the targets that I've set myself. The tower, the Ring of 5, has just, as I say, they've just done a reinvigoration of that, where they've actually they've just reapproached their community and got another 2 or 3 people from that. And suddenly the dynamics of the band have changed then, because you've got a band there that was ringing rounds and call changes, playing hunts, playing bob, and suddenly there's a lot more focus on some of the other less experienced ringers. But interestingly, those ringers that were learners 6 months ago and are ringing rounds and call changes now take some value in the fact that they're actually giving something to some of the less experienced ringers as well. So they take on a different dynamic in the band as well.
Yeah, I accept everything you say, and we try very hard to do that too. But we still have a recruitment issue.
Can I add something to this? We had a band which started completely like number 4 band.
Okay.
3 years ago. There is not a single experienced ringer in the band.
Right.
But we do lose people, just as you were saying. We have an open tower evening once a year. We had 60 people came up our tower. Some people did ring full circle on the first evening, some people just chimed. We had cakes, we had all sorts of activities going on. We raised some money for a local cancer charity during the evening. It was just a massive village event, basically. But we hooked bell ringing onto it. It was a St. Catherine's Day. And what we find is when we open the tower, there are a huge number of people who just want to come and have a look. And we get 1 or 2 recruits every single time we do it.
Yeah, we do that once a year, and we get maybe a dozen come each year. And so far, I've had one guy say, I'd like to learn to ring, and he lives on the south coast, so I sent him to his local town. Great, I need local people.
Can I make a point which we perhaps haven't touched on today, not within my earshot anyway, and that is the sort of unwritten assumption that it's the ringers that do everything in ringing. If you think of other sports, other hobbies, music societies, theatres and such like, there are usually friends, supporters clubs and affiliated groups that are not doing the acting, not actually playing the football, not actually playing the tennis, but will be actively engaged in the society in some associate role. And when it comes to fundraising, teaching, buttering the bread, making the cakes, doing all the other social bits and pieces, putting letters through letterboxes, all that sort of thing, they will be using the skills and the talents of the village or the community around to do that sort of thing. When it comes to teaching, all the peripheral bits and pieces would be done by those other people, And the trainers, the teachers, would be seen as the professionals, just doing the training, just doing the teaching. So I wonder again whether it's one of these things that's sort of an unwritten cultural thing amongst ringing and ringers, where we seem to be doing absolutely everything and expecting to have to do everything 7 nights a week, 7 Saturdays a month, etc., etc., and then saying, God, it's too much. And then, in fairness, if that's the perception that we create with the newcomers, they say, this is not for me, I can't commit this time. So I wonder whether we've got to somehow, again, it's one of these things that culturally it's what we've come accustomed to in ringing, but do we need to think in different ways?
And just to put it into context, the last tower that we talked about there, those 30 people that came along initially, and the 18 of them that signed up to give it a go, the rest of them have given us a tremendous amount of support.
That's great.
We have anything, they held the society striking competition there. The local residents turned out and they were doing teas, sandwiches, for all the people sat outside listening to the ringing, and it's a great community activity, and they are supported by local residents in the village. As I say, I can only talk about my personal experiences, and I can't answer all the questions necessarily. It was just really what I've learned from going through this process. So.
In the old days, when it's only men who were in that, it used to be their boys who did all the business.
But I think that, I mean, I know.
We now ring instead, we must be.
I know that you make very good points about the fact of some ringers going out and doing everything. I had a tremendous amount of support, and I supported other ringers, but I took it. That was my personal choice to go out so much and do the ringing, because I wanted to be involved in the process that was going on. So please don't feel that it was just me doing it. There was a tremendous amount of teamwork going on in the background as well.
Yeah, I mean, within the St Martin's Guild, something that has been an issue. Sorry, what has been an issue in the St Martin's Guild is when we've been asked to go out and help people, actually exiting from that arrangement, because you've got to try and grow the local band to a level where someone can actually take control within that band. And you've got to have an exit strategy, but you're find one.
Well, I was very fortunate in the fact that when we look at those towers, there was, in the Ring of Five, there was a clear leader who emerged. The ring of the second tower, the Ring of Six, that sort of dwindled away, it left 1 or 2 ringers, and they sort of took the lead on that. Obviously, the Ring of Eight that taught from themselves, they already had that structure. But the last tower, one of the local ringers, because it actually worked with the service times was slightly different to another local tower, and also the practice night was different. One of the other local ringers took that on and led it, essentially. So it was, I understand exactly what you mean. The difficulty is at what point do you say, we're withdrawing from this? And we'll never withdraw completely, because there'll always be that support, but it's making sure that everybody's comfortable and happy and with the arrangement. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
My experience on that is the first 5 years of the worst.